He talked about pumpkin and about fall and about pumpkin spice and about how it's mostly cinnamon, but how it's just overtaken the month.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy. I am Donna. I'm a realtor with Keller Williams in Southern Arizona, and I work in Tucson. And I'm here with my brother,
Eric Seemann, realtor with Keller Williams Heritage in San Antonio, Texas.
We are here together to reflect and reminisce on how our life and upbringing in the small rural village of Lindsey, Ohio, impacted our lives and careers in real estate, now in the Southwest states, the areas that we call home. We work to try to connect what made the two houses that we lived in together with our parents and siblings, along with the two additional houses that I lived in later with my family, before ultimately moving out here to Arizona. We've learned that we have a nostalgic conversation when we're here together, and it takes a lot of twists and turns during any episode. And in the end, we hope that we're going to be successful in providing you some expert knowledge of our markets while we share some history, statistics, and just simply information about the local real estate markets where we are that you might not be aware of. So today, Eric, you and I have spent a lot of time in the past week or two talking about the categories for podcasts. Why don't you tell our listeners what we have discovered?
You'd like to think that this is simple. Look, anybody can do a podcast. Just grab your phone and talk and find out to actually, let's say, rubber meets the road. To make it move, you've got to do a little bit more. So when we started this, we imagined and thought about what we wanted to do, but didn't really go much beyond that. And the platform we use, called Liberated Syndication, or Libsyn for short, requires us as the podcast author or host to pick a category. And by picking that category, then when it goes out to Google or Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and some of the smaller platforms, Odyssey, Deezer, Samsung, even Boomplay, you need to pick that category. And because of our uniqueness of our show, imagine that, I picked leisure, home, and garden as our primary category, and business marketing is our secondary category. And honestly, found out that business real estate is not even an option, despite the fact that there's so many real estate podcasts out there. And we're defining ourselves, honestly, by what we're not. Because if you've ever listened to a real estate podcast, you'll find that it's a bunch of mega agents or super agents who are trying to train other real estate agents, provide them advice on how to do business. Or it's one of those ones like, what is it, Bigger Box, that allows you or reaches out to the public to go, hey, you want to be an investor? This is how you invest. This is how you renovate. This is how you flip. You got to build those things. We don't do either of those things. And likewise, we haven't talked gardening yet. We've talked a little bit of plants, and I think we plan on talking plants today, but we don't talk about raised beds or organic gardening or any of those kind of things. So I wish they had a category for us that would be leisure, lifestyle, and real estate, because that's where I feel like we fall in.
Leisure, lifestyle, real estate, home, houses. Let's have all those.
There you go. All of them.
We'll create our own category, Eric, because that's
it. We're just going to become so dominant in what we do that they're going to add a category just for us.
Just for us. That's our dream. So based on that, you and I decided that from October, November, December, we're going to talk a little bit about the holidays in Lindsey, Ohio, and fall, and then go into Thanksgiving and Christmas, so that we can kind of share what used to be with what is now in San Antonio. Antonio and in Tucson, right?
Yes.
And man, as you and I started talking about fall, we started with leaves, right? We started with raking leaves, which may or may not have been fun, but it depended on what you were doing with the leaves. Because once we raked the leaves, we had piles to jump in. I reminded you, you were probably too little, that I used to make the layout of a house in the front lawn at the house on Main Street.
That's your earliest days in real estate, right? You put more effort into building a leaf than you did paying attention to the houses you lived in.
Exactly. So that's true. So we, Diane Rodriguez and I and Charlene and whoever, Dora Cruz, whoever lived close, we would build these houses on the front lawn and take blankets and make rooms in the bedroom and all that. But you and I also had talked about the memories that come with smoke and burning the leaves. Right?
Yeah. I tell you, the fall leaves, our trees were almost all maple in Lindsey. Yeah. I mean, there were other trees, and there's probably more oak trees now because of the
bike path and the
railroad conversion and the park and biking path than there were when we were growing up. But man, there's a distinct smell to fall leaves being set on fire. And I don't know if it's still the moisture content, but man, it's one of those senses from my standpoint that just like a fresh rain on hot pavement, and you get that smell going, well, you can smell the rain. With leaves, I mean, you'd walk outside and you go, oh, someone's burning leaves.
Somebody's burning leaves, and it smelled different than a fireplace in a house or something like that. Not to mention that we roasted marshmallows, right? And we sometimes did hot dogs. Yeah. Since I lived there longer than you did, I went back, again, and was there for 20 years. I remember specifically when we couldn't do that anymore, or we weren't supposed to. We were told that we were affecting the ozone. And as a young person, I was like, come on, my little leaf fire in Lindsey, Ohio cannot be affecting the ozone. I was like, individually offended that I couldn't burn.
There was a volcanic eruption somewhere halfway around the world that did more damage than your leaves.
I know, it's so weird. But the other thing you and I talked about, and this just so relates to our current economy, is that we would get in a car and we would go for a drive. We would maybe go into Fremont to the Hayes Center, right? And drive
around Spiegel Grove. Yeah.
Right. And our friends, my friends, partially because of Facebook, of course, or probably mostly, are posting those pictures of the fall leaves. One of the young ladies who's a realtor now in Tucson, or in Lindsey, Rachel Zimmerman, she posted some at Oak openings and up in the Metro Park, up in Toledo. And it's beautiful right now. Something we don't have in the desert.
Yeah, certainly not. And the other thing is that the difference in temperature. Yeah. I had to look. There's enough discussion internationally and on the news about climate change.
Yeah.
And I've just looked at it and going, so right now in Ohio, where we grew up, during the month of October, the average low temperature is about 47 degrees. And the average high temperature is about 64 degrees. Compare that to Tucson, which your average low is 61 degrees and a high of 89.
Yeah.
And then here in San Antonio, we're a low of 61 and an average high of 85 degrees.
Right. So, it was a huge decision for me today. First of all, we need to mention for those of you that are watching that Eric and I both put colors on that are sort of fall colors. So his is very blatantly orange and mine is kind of an orange, black, brown mix. This is long sleeves, but it's long sleeve, super thin fabric. So there's this mental thing that you should wear long sleeves. Yeah, I'll put my arms up. You should wear long sleeves, but it's still going to be in the mid 80s today in the afternoon. Anyway, so besides the leaves, we clearly then had a lot of discussion about trick-or-treating and costumes and all of that. And for those of you
wait. Before we go into that, because we talked with family. Okay, so once a month, we get together and we do a family Zoom. With the pandemic, we decided, you know what? We need to talk more frequently and just see how everybody's doing. So even though the pandemic is winding down and ramping back up, whichever way you want to look at it, depending on the news, we do this once a month, and we asked our two brothers, Dan and Ken, about things. And one of the ones that came up, and even Eleanor, our sister, remembered, was Mischief Night.
I didn't remember that at all.
And I did not remember specifically Mischief Night. You don't remember it either?
No, apparently I never got into mischief, just saying.
Yeah, whatever. I just can't believe some of the stuff that Dana, used to joke about it. It's like, look, if there was somebody you didn't like, you'd pick up some sort of manure, toss it in a paper bag, set the bag on fire, and toss it on their porch. Now,
our brother Dan
tossing a burning bag onto somebody's front porch, the humor is they're supposed to come running out the door going, oh my gosh, and stomp it out. And then, of course, they're covered with dog poo or
horse
whatever.
or cow or whatever.
But he said they did eggs.
Well, we did. No, not me. I'm never going to admit that. But I think all those police officers that were around are gone threw eggs at windows.
One of them's behind you in the picture.
I know, exactly. That was kind of messy, but for the most part, it was toilet paper and soaping windows, right? That was pretty much what it was. And I'm going to just say that sometimes when people had a lot of toilet paper at their house, they knew they were popular.
That's right. There was a status symbol to the volume of toilet paper in the trees.
Which is, and again, now we're like, just think of during COVID, how you couldn't even get toilet paper. Can you imagine?
You're getting your $32 a roll micro paper from China while we couldn't get toilet paper here.
Oh my gosh. So those are some of the activities, right, that happened in the small town.
Okay, again, I'm jumping in before trick-or-treating. Our small town, unlike some areas, man, our town, I felt like embraced our cemetery.
Oh, we did. Oh, yeah.
And it was a regular part of Halloween because of one tombstone.
Yep, the glowing.
That was obviously a newer granite because the older stones would not have done. But there was a point where as you're taking the walk or driving down to the cemetery, there was a gravestone that was positioned just right that it would catch the light and would become the glowing head on the headstone. And again, preparing for this has been fun because I actually connected with one of our friends from Lindsey, haven't talked to. It's like, so what have you done over the last 40 years? Shelley remembers that distinctly too, doing the youth fellowship event and walking down to the cemetery and looking for the glowing headstone.
Yeah, and it was scary. And however older kids were, they would take the younger kids to creep them out or scare them or whatever. So I don't even know what old looks like at this point. Was that the 12 and 14-year-olds or the 16-year-olds taking the 8-year-olds? I don't know.
Yeah. And of course, that part, Dan couldn't remember what we did. He just knows that he wasn't with us.
Yeah. No, that's because he's so old compared to you.
That's it. He's so old. He'll be happy to hear that.
So,
all right. So now talk trick-or-treating.
Yeah. And the thing is, I was really going to talk for those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you can see the photos that Eric and I have started using. And, to be fair, this is a podcast and many of you are going to listen to it just orally. You're not going to look at the audio. Behind me today is a picture that was taken based on my photo albums where I dug it out of like 98 or 99, which I don't know. Adam was born in 84. It has to have been before that. I think I stuck it in another wrong album. Anyway, this is uptown at the firehouse. And these are the dignitaries of the town who are judging the costumes. And so my Adam is in the middle dressed as a vampire, along with probably a few other vampires and ghosts. And what's funny for me, and Eric, you and I have talked about it, and all of you from Lindsey who watch this, tell me how many people you can identify from the back of the head and their hat. So
I just like the hairlines. I know what those hairlines are like underneath all the hats. At least 3 of them.
That's true. I think Tracy Woodruff still had
Mr.
hair.
Woodruff had hair.
Yeah. My light keeps coming and going. This is interesting.
Are your skylight? You got clouds?
Yeah, I have my skylight in my room. You can tell clouds are coming over. It's funny. This was an activity that took place. And we also, you and I talked a lot about the fact that we had the contest at the school. And when we asked on our Facebook pages for Lindsey, Ohio and the elementary school, they did that right up until the school closed. This was my generation of living back there with my kids. But when we were little, you and I talked a little bit about some of the costumes at the school and a couple of years. So first of all, they were made. They weren't purchased. We didn't ever have purchased. Now, maybe that thing Adam wearing is right there was a purchased piece of black fabric. I don't know. But Dad.
I don't know. You were pretty crafty. You probably sewed something.
Oh, I might have. What I remember the most would be so politically incorrect right now was the year that Dan and I were Lucky Strike cigarettes and a group of matches. a package
book
of
of
matches.
matches. And Lucky Strike because that was Dad's brand.
Dad's brand of cigarettes. So that was clearly in the 60s. And I don't know if you have any memory of that. So I'm not sure how old you were or what you remember. But
we didn't use them, but I remember Dad saved them.
Yeah, that's true. They were probably in that back of that garage barn for a long time. So just thinking of the costumes that Dad made. And then what was the other one that you and Dan and I talked about the other day that you specifically remember that I think Dan wore and then I wore a couple of years later?
Oh, the mummy.
The mummy. So
the mummy outfit. Think about it. It was not designed that you were supposed to be walking around.
No,
How terrible is that for a kid?
We stood in the gym at the school in a paper mache, like over chicken wire, real mummy thing for the whole judging time, or whatever.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's like, here, kids, stand still. Do I have a choice?
And depending on how high you were, how tall we were, could we actually see out the eyes of that thing? Like, I don't remember. I just remember standing in it for a long time.
But again, the other part of the story that I remember is that Dan won the year that he had it. And in order to receive, he stuck his hand out.
At the fly? The fly of the mummy.
To get the blue ribbon.
That is so funny.
And I could be misremembering or making it up. Who knows?
Yeah. One of those stories that comes up.
But we were trick-or-treating. We talked about the fact that in the previous episode, 176 houses in Lindsey. As a kid trick-or-treating, our goal was to try to make every single one of them within 2-hour time frame, right?
Right. Hit every house. Yeah.
And that meant you
go
were
ahead.
moving.
Yeah.
Big clip.
Yeah. And what came up also, again, so I'm going to mention Dan several times since we just had this family Zoom. He who doesn't remember much of anything and looks at us all like we have 4 heads, he immediately said that the favorite place to trick or treat was, and we all said Mrs. Milky's.
The Milkies.
Because Mrs. Milky made popcorn balls. Now, Betsy Lisa reminded me that not everybody got popcorn balls. So I don't remember, and I keep saying everybody's maiden names. I don't remember how Mrs. Milky chose who got a popcorn ball, but I know that we got to go into the kitchen and get a popcorn ball. And you and I again talked about who even gets homemade product now. I know. So, and one of those things when you talk about homemade, I had to do some looking, going, did it really happen? Yeah.
Because did we all start getting concerned because what's urban legend and what really occurred?
Yeah.
Turns out that while there were times where there were needles and razor blades and those kind of things found in one of the other fall treats that you got, aside from something homemade, maybe homegrown like an apple,
that's
and
true.
people
Caramel
put the stuff inside those. Again, most of it is urban legend. They're documented the legitimate issues in the entire 20th century, since we're living in the 21st century, was only about 100 cases total nationwide.
Of problems.
Wow. And one of the best known happened in 1974. So right about that time where you were getting the age.
I was in 10th grade.
Trick-or-treating anymore, right?
Yeah, right.
There was a dad who took pixie sticks and he put cyanide in the pixie sticks. And he gave them to his own kids after he had increased their life insurance policies.
Oh, Eric, that's depressing.
But the only person who passed away, the only one who got sick and passed away, was his own son.
Whoa.
Yeah. How's that for a Halloween story? And then the other thing that linked to it that I think really drove it was 1982. That's when Tylenol was tampered with, and that happened in Chicago. And those two events really kind of steered everybody away from those kind of things.
Yeah.
So not only the non-judgmental for the costumes, but homemade treats. Did you get cookies? Did you get brownies? Did you get anything else?
Right. Yeah. And because of where we live, you and I talked about, I don't remember going with mom and dad. Like, I don't remember at a young age, because what I remember is when, again, going 8 grades to the same elementary school, that we would go with all of our friends, and you kind of learned who had good treats and who didn't, just like every kid does of every generation, right? And you would start out on a route and go a certain way, to try to hit up as many as you can. But what's also funny for me, and maybe you remember this and maybe you don't, but the house that on Lynn Street that we have talked about the most, the house 1868, that had been in the Miller family, which, by the way, part of the Wendell Miller family, right there in the red hat.
That's right, the red hat.
It was a scary house. it was a big old dark, scary house. And as a younger person, I was afraid to go on that. It was like we were dared to go on that porch and what we got. And I think Dan remembered this too.
Yeah,
right?
Dan remembered that too.
We got a penny. We didn't get candy. We got a penny.
And it was like a cookie sheet.
Yeah.
Right?
It was like
you had to pick a penny off the cookie sheet.
But you could probably buy penny candy. So we could have gone up to the hardware and gotten penny.
That's right. You could go pick your
candy.
own. So giving you a penny when you could still go get a penny candy was a thing.
And when Dad came home and told us he had bought that house, I remember thinking, he bought the scary house.
And I was just excited about moving. So, well, other thoughts? I mean, again, a lot more lifestyle, and from us, terminology, simpler time. A lot less judgmental, a lot more carefree. There's one time in particular, I remember a rainy Halloween night, and we had the big paper grocery bags, and I was down at you lived in Walnut first and then ended up on Main Street, right?
Yeah.
So I was at the end of the driveway. There was a little bit of a dip, big puddle. My bag fell apart right at the end of Folks driveway right next to Rod's house, and I was just devastated. It's like, no, what am I gonna do? I hadn't even gotten close to hitting all the houses. It was a terrible event.
Are you in therapy? Because
I should be. Someone's gonna dig this up in the past.
Oh, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this affected you forever. No, not so much, because we both like to eat. We both like to bake. We probably way more than we need. Yeah. So we didn't have enough food trauma in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Food trauma. So.
Yeah. So Eric, what's the picture behind you? Where's that one from?
All right. So down the road from us, Bernie, Texas.
Okay.
And that pumpkin is not painted. That's actually cut out. That is a big, huge metal storage tank.
Wow.
And those cutouts, it's painted on the inside black, and the teeth, the nose, the everything are carved just like you did a jack-o'-lantern.
Is it metal? What's it made
It's
of?
metal.
Oh, that's.
I mean, they move it out there. If you could see the big hook on it.
Oh, okay.
And it gets loaded in with a boom when they put it out. And I drove by recently, and it's out again this year. And of course, we're dry, so you got really, really orange and really, really dead grass.
Yeah. So are you a watcher of CBS Sunday Morning? Because the other day, comedian at the end.
Not since Jane Pauley took over.
So somebody's going to help me with who it is, because I can't think of his name. But anyway, he talked about pumpkin and about fall and about pumpkin spice and about how it's mostly cinnamon, but how it's just overtaken the month. And honestly, I put a post on Facebook the other day, and I was really distressed that there were no pumpkin images. So I used basketballs because at least they were orange, and how that's just become part of our world. And did Hallmark create this? And paying $6 for a pumpkin spice latte. Our father, bless his soul, would be rolling over in his grave to even think that we paid $6 for what was coffee.
Ultimately, it's like, this is the man who saved his Burger King styrofoam cup in his drink coaster so he could go get his 45-cent coffee doing a 12-mile drive, which that in and of itself was like, Dad, that is a contradiction. You're driving to get a 45-cent cup of coffee. Yeah. So
anyway,
all right. Well, next time we get together, we're going to be taking some of this same lifestyle and pushing it forward to 21st century Tucson and San Antonio, right?
Yeah. Yes. And talking a little bit about current times and how October and fall and Halloween and everything is celebrated in San Antonio and in Tucson. The things that are the same, the things that are different, and what we put importance in or on, just the changes that have occurred in our world in 45 years, 50, I don't know. How many years?
How many years? There you go. You don't let anybody know your age. Don't let anybody know your age.
And so quizzing people, those of you from Lindsey that watch this, or Fremont or wherever you live now, the names behind us, I'm trying to remember. I'm going to tell you who they are. No, should I not? Should I let people figure it out?
Figure it out, and if you want to say maybe next episode.
Yeah, maybe next episode we'll say. Bottom line is, we had a school teacher, we had a mayor, we had a police officer, and it's really fun for me because all of these men are gone, and to look back and see who was part of our life, right?
Yep.
And
part of that small town world.
Who got in trouble with me.
We want to thank everybody for listening and joining us again. Really, on this one, much more of a stroll down memory lane, and we reminisced and reflected on how life in our small village of Lindsey, Ohio, impacted our lives and careers in real estate. As we conclude this episode, please keep in mind our goal is to communicate, educate, and connect with you, our listeners. If you're in Arizona, and specifically in Tucson or South Central Texas, in and around San Antonio, we are both realtors with Keller Williams and are here to help you find the perfect property for your family to call home and for you to create lasting memories in. If you are across the United States, somewhere around the world, we are both part of an extensive network of professional real estate advisors, and we would be happy to connect you with an amazing realtor. Remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. And until next time, this is Eric.
And I'm Donna.
And we are
Real
Siblings.
Someday we'll get that together.
We got to get the timing down. See y'all.
Like a mic drop. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Every time I think about the places I have known, I realize that times have changed. So I'll do what I can to make this house into a home. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Siblings. It ain't easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.